In our last vocabulary lesson, we learned some weather-related Twi words. If you missed that, I'll leave it linked up here. So in that lesson, I told you that was to prepare you for a speaking lesson ahead on talking about the weather. And that is what we are looking at in today's lesson. So by the end of today's lesson, you will have a number of phrases to ask about and also describe the weather in Twi. Let's get started. So if you want to ask someone if it's cold, you would ask, awo wom. Awo wom. In that vocabulary lesson, I told you awo is cold weather or cold temperature. So if you ask awo wom, you are asking if it's cold. Now, this is a yes or no question. And just as you do in English, we typically raise the tone towards the end of essentially statements to turn those into yes or no questions. So for example, in English, you can say, she knows him, right? She knows him, and that is a statement. So the tone is down. But when I raise the tone towards the end, I can use this same statement as a yes or no question. So I can ask, she knows him, and that is similar to how it is done in Twi. So in this case, for example, we have awo wom, and this is only a yes or no question because I raise the tone towards the end. But I can bring the tone down, and that will turn this yes or no question into a statement that answers this same question. Okay? So instead of awo wom, I can say awo wom, and that is it's cold. Okay? So awo wom, is it cold? Awo wom, it's cold. And since this is a yes or no question, we can precede this with ane. Yes, awo wom, it's cold. If it's very cold, you can say awo wom pa. Awo wom pa. Okay? Awo wom pa. Now, if it's not cold, you can say awo nim. Awo nim. But since this is in response to a yes or no question, you can precede this with debi, no, and then you have awo nim. Okay, debi, awo nim. Now, this was you asking if it's cold in general, and we responding to say. But if you want to ask someone if he or she feels cold, so you're not asking if it's cold in general, but you are asking an individual if he or she feels cold, then you would ask, awo dew. Awo dew. And you are using the wo at the end because you are asking a single person, okay? But if you're asking more than a single person, you would ask, awo demo. Awo demo, do you feel cold? To respond to this, again, this is a yes or no question. So we just raise the tone towards the end to form the question out of a statement. So you can just bring the tone down on the question and then change the pronoun at the end to the first person because you are responding for yourself. So if I ask awo dew, you can respond with awo deme. Awo deme. So we have changed wo for me because I'm responding for myself, right? So awo dew, awo deme. Again, since this is a yes or no question, you can precede this with ane, yes, awo deme, I feel cold. If you feel very cold, you can say ane, awo deme pa, okay, ane, awo deme pa. If you are not feeling cold, you can say awo neme, awo neme. This ne is the negative of the de, all right? So you have awo neme. Again, this is a yes or no question, so you can precede this with debi. So you have debi, awo neme. Debi, awo neme, all right? If you are responding for yourself and other people, you can say awo die, okay? Awo die. If you are not feeling cold, then you can say awo neye. Awo neye. Again, you can bring debi in front if you are responding to the yes or no question. Keep in mind that I have structured this lesson in such a way that for most of the sections we have a question and response kind of format, right? But you don't have to be asked the question before you can use the statement, right? The response bit. So for example, if you think it's cold, you can just say, "Awo wom," okay? "Awo wom." Let's say you wake up in the morning and it's very cold. You can just say, "Awo wom pa," okay? "Awo wom pa." So with this, you are not responding to any question. So you don't bring any ane or debi in front, okay? Again, if you feel cold, you can just say, "Awo demi," okay? "Awo demi." "Awo demi pa," all right? "Awo demi pa." If you want to ask if it's warm, in our vocabulary lesson, we said warm weather or warm temperature is ehuhuru, okay? Ehuhuru. So you want to ask if it's warm, we'll follow the same structure as before. So we have ehuhuru wom, ehuhuru wom, okay? Ehuhuru wom. And again, this is a yes or no question that has been formed out of a statement by raising the tone towards the end. So you can bring the tone down and that will turn that into a statement that answers the same question. So ehuhuru wom, but in response you can say ehuhuru wom, ehuhuru wom. And again, you can use this by itself without using it as a response to a question. But if you are using this in response to a yes or no question, then you can precede this with ane, okay? So you have ane ehuhuru wom, ane ehuhuru wom, ehuhuru wom pa, ehuhuru wom pa, all right? But if it's not warm, then you can say ehuhuru nim, ehuhuru nim, all right? Again, if it's in response to a question, then you can say debi ehuhuru nim, debi ehuhuru nim. Again, the question was, is it warm or is it hot in general, right? But if you want to ask if someone feels warm, right, then you would ask ehuhuru dew, ehuhuru dew. So you see, it follows the same format, right? Ehuhuru dew. Do you feel warm? Do you feel hot? Okay. Ehuhuru dew. And since this is a yes or no question, in response, if you indeed feel warm, then you can say ane ehuhuru demi, ane ehuhuru demi, or debi ehuhuru neme, debi ehuhuru neme. If you recall from our vocabulary lesson, we had 3 temperatures. We had awo, which is cold weather. We had ehuhuru, which can be warm temperature or hot temperature. And then we had oshiw, which is hot temperature, right? So if you want to ask if it's hot, then you would ask oshiw wom, oshiw wom, okay? Oshiw wom. Again, this is a yes or no question. So in response, you can say ane oshiw wom, ane oshiw wom. If it's very hot, you can say ane oshiw wom pa, ane oshiw wom pa. If it's not hot, you can respond to that with debi oshiw nim, debi oshiw nim. Again, this was we asking if it's hot in general and we responding to same. But if you want to ask someone if he or she feels hot, then you can ask oshiw dew, oshiw dew, okay? Oshiw dew. Again, this is a yes or no question, so you can say ane oshiw demi, ane oshiw demi. Again, it doesn't have to be in response to a question, so you can use just the statement part by itself to express the fact that you feel hot, right? So you can say oshiw demi, right? Oshiw demi. But if you don't feel hot, then you can say debi oshiw neme, debi oshiw neme. In the vocabulary lesson, we said the rain is osuo. Technically, we said osuo is the rain. And then we said the regular water, so like drinking water, bathing water, and all that, we call that nsuo, okay, technically. And then we have the water bodies, right? The rivers, the stream, and all that, we call that esuo. But then I told you that on the ground, we don't really adhere to, these technicalities. We don't. So we mostly just use nsuo for all of them. But you just have to know that there's a difference. Now that we have, the technical differences out of the way, let's talk about the rain. You see, when it's about to rain, the skies will turn gloomy, right? When that happens, we say osuo emuna. Osuo emuna, or most commonly, nsuo emuna. Nsuo emuna. The verb here is muna. Muna. And this is the same verb that we use to mean to frown. So I guess you get why we use the same verb to describe the skies being gloomy. So you say osuo emuna or nsuo emuna. So I can ask nsuo emuna. Nsuo emuna. And in response, you would say nsuo emuna, because this is a yes or no question. So nsuo emuna, the tone is high, and in response, you bring the tone down and you have nsuo emuna. Nsuo emuna. But since this is in response to a yes or no question, you can precede this with ane. So you say ane nsuo emuna. Ane nsuo emuna. If it's not gloomy, then you can say debi nsuo munaye. Debi nsuo munaye. But if you want to really ask if it's about to rain, right? So you're not asking specifically about the sky being gloomy. Although if you ask that, you are essentially asking if it's about rain. But for this one, you are not asking specifically about the skies being gloomy. You are actually asking if it's about rain. Then you can ask osuo beto. Osuo beto or nsuo beto, which is more common, okay? Nsuo beto, is it about rain? Okay, nsuo beto. And in response, you say ane nsuo beto. Ane nsuo beto. You can also ask osuo pete. Osuo pete, or most commonly nsuo pete. Nsuo pete, is it drizzling? Okay, the verb here is pete, and pete means to sprinkle, right? To sprinkle. So is it drizzling? Is the rain sprinkling? Okay, so you have nsuo pete. So if it is drizzling, you can say ane nsuo pete. Ane nsuo pete. Again, you don't have to use this in response to a question. You can just use the statement part to report the fact that it is drizzling. So you can just say nsuo pete, right? Nsuo pete. If it's not drizzling, you can say debi nsuo pete. Debi nsuo pete. Okay, debi nsuo pete. But if it starts to rain, or you are asking if it is raining, then you can ask osuo to. Osuo to, or most commonly nsuo to. Nsuo to, is it raining? Okay, so the verb here is to, which is to fall. Okay, so is the rain falling? Osuo to or nsuo to. And in response, again, this is a yes or no question, so you can say ane nsuo to. Ane nsuo to. You bring the tone down. Okay, so ane nsuo to. Yes, it's raining. Again, you can use the statement part without the ane to report the fact that it's raining. So you can just say nsuo to. Nsuo to, right? If it's raining heavily, you can say nsuo to gidigidi. Nsuo to gidigidi. But instead of this, you can say osubrane to. Osubrane to. In our vocabulary lesson, we said Osubrane is a heavy rain, a downpour, right? So when you say Osubrane to, you are saying, it is raining heavily. There's a heavy rain, there's a downpour. But if it's not raining, then you can say Nsuo ntoye. Nsuo ntoye. If it's in response to the question Osuo to or Nsuo to, then you can precede this with Debi. So you say Debi. Nsuo ntoye. Debi. Nsuo ntoye. If you want to say it has rained, you will say Osuo ato. Osuo ato or Nsuo ato. So it has rained. So maybe it has rained and it has ceased, right? So you say Nsuo ato, it has rained. If it rained yesterday, you can say Osuo to nra. Osuo to nra, or most commonly Nsuo to nra. Okay, Nsuo to nra. If you think it will rain this evening, you can say Nsuo beto enyumre. Nsuo beto enyumre. You are using the future tense marker be. Okay, so Nsuo beto enyumre. Nsuo to anopei. Nsuo to anopei. Osubrani bi to na wochi etwa mu no. Osubrani bi to na wochi etwa mu no. Let's say it's been raining and you want to ask if it has stopped raining. You can ask Osuo nate. Osuo no ate. Okay, or most commonly Nsuo nate. Nsuo no ate. Okay, so te means to cease, right? To stop raining in this case. So Nsuo nate, has it stopped raining? And in response, you can say ane Nsuo nate. Okay, ane Nsuo nate. Or Debi Nsuo no nteye. Debi Nsuo no nteye. If you want to ask if it's sunny, you can ask Ewiabo. Ewia abo. Again, the tone is raised at the end because this is a yes or no question. Okay, and that is the only way that this becomes a question. Else, if you bring the tone down, then this is a statement. From our vocabulary lesson, I told you that ewia or owia is the sun, okay? But we also use ewia to refer to the afternoon. So if I ask ewiabo, I'm asking if it's sunny, if the sun is shining. But this can also mean, is it afternoon, all right? So I can use the same question to ask if it's afternoon, all right? But here we are using it to mean, is it sunny or is the sun shining? Ewiabo. And in response to this, you can say ane ewiabo. Okay? Ane ewiabo. So you bring the tone down on the statement. And again, you can do away with the ane and use ewiabo to just report the fact that it is sunny or the sun is shining or it's afternoon. If it's not sunny, so if the sun is not shining and someone asks ewiabo, is it sunny? You can say debi ewiamoye. Debi ewiamoye. If you want to say the sun is out, so in the morning when the sun rises and you want to say that, you would say ewiano epie. Ewiano epie. So we have the pui at the end, which we most commonly say as p. Okay, and that means to come out. So we have ewiano epie, the sun is out, right? Ewiano epie. If the sun goes to set, we say ewiano akoto or owiano akoto. Okay, so the verb here is to set here, all right? So this is why we have epuye as the east, and then we have atoye as the west, because we have pue in epuye, which is to rise, where the sun comes out from, because the sun rises from the east, right? So we have epuye, and then we have atoye, and that is where the sun goes to set. So there is the to in there, all right? So you want to say the sun has gone to set, you say ewiano akoto or uwiano akoto. When the sun is shining and it's very hot, so scorching, right? You can say ewiano anuoden. Ewiano anoɔden, okay? Awia no anoɔden. And if the sun is burning you, so it's scorching you, you can say awia shimmy. Awia shimmy. So you have the shi in there, which is to burn. If you want to say the wind is blowing, you say mframefa. Mframefa, okay? Mframefa. So from our vocabulary lesson, we learned that the wind or the air is mframa, okay? Mframa. So you say mframefa, the wind is blowing, okay? We also learned from our vocabulary lesson that a storm is a hum, okay? A hum. Now, if you want to say it is stormy, you say a humi tu. A hum ritu. If you say it slower, you say a hum ritu, okay? But if you go, fast or at normal speed, most times you say a humi tu, okay? A humi tu. It is stormy. We also learned in the vocabulary lesson that thunder is agrada. You remember Nana Agrada, right? Yeah, so we have agrada as thunder. Now, if you want to say it is thundering, you can say that, right? Yeah, so if you want to say it is thundering, you say agrada jija. I am agrada kasiya agrada jija. So we have agrada jija. It is thundering, okay? Do you remember what we said lightning is? Ayeremu, okay? Ayeremu. Now, for ayeremu, if you want to say it is lightning, right? You say ayeremu tete. Ayeremu tete, okay? Ayeremu tete. So the verb here is te, which has been doubled. Te here is like, this. I don't know how you say that in English, but the lightning, right? It flashes, right? So we have ayeremu tete. Ayeremu tete. The rainbow we said is nyankontong. Nyankontong, okay? Now, for rainbow, it only comes out, right? What did we say the verb was for to come out? P, okay? P. It's actually pui, but I told you that we mostly say this as P. So if you want to say the rainbow is out, you can say nyankontong epi. Nyankontong epi, okay? What did we say the cloud is? Mununkum. Mununkum. So we have the cloud as mununkum. When it's cloudy, we say mununkum esi. Mununkum esi. So the verb here is si, okay? And si literally means to happen. So we have mununkum esi. Mununkum esi. Another one that goes with si, the verb si, is hamatan. Hamatan, or the dry season, we learned in the vocabulary lesson as ope. Ope. Now, if you want to say it is dry or it is hamatan, you say ope esi. Ope esi. If you want to say we are in the dry season, you would say yewo opebrim. Yewo opebrim, okay? Yewo opebrim. From our vocabulary lesson, we said opebre is the dry season, so the period. That is why we have bre, which is time, attached to ope, which is hamatan. And if you recall the rainy season, we said that is osutobre, okay? Osutobre. So just as it is with, the dry season, if you want to say we are in the rainy season, you would say yewo osutobrem. Yewo osutobrem, which is actually the season that we are in at the moment in Ghana. So we are in the month of June. Ayewo hu momo bosumimu, okay? Ayewo hu momo bosumimu, the month with the longest name. And if you recall from our vocabulary lesson, you know the month of June, ayewo hu momo, is within the osutobrem. it is within the rainy season. So we have Yewo Osutobrim, we are in the wet season or the rainy season. Again, from our vocabulary lesson, we learned that snow is suchrema. Suchrema. And I told you that it doesn't snow in Ghana. But if you happen to be in a country where it snows, you can use this. You can say suchreme to, for example. Suchreme to. It is snowing. Suchrema to nra. It snowed yesterday.